Chasten is a father, teacher, author, and Michigander. But many of you have probably heard that he's also the husband of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. In today's America, teachers are under attack for what they teach, what they say, and who they are. The LGBTQ kids they teach are also under attack, not allowed to speak up and express themselves. It is amid this toxic and hate-filled world that Chasten has published an adaptation of his recent memoir, specifically for young adults, titled, I Have Something to Tell You. Chasten speaks of his experience growing up in rural conservative Michigan and how he was able to find his voice and ultimately embrace his real self with honesty and compassion. In the book, he explains just how complicated that journey was, writing, "It was more important for me to protect myself than to live authentically. That's a situation that many LGBTQ plus people find themselves in. Everyone needs to be able to come out on their own terms. And in high school, I just knew that wasn't a safe option." This book serves as a beacon of hope and a guide to all of the kids across America that are feeling silenced, bullied, and shunned, especially the ones in states like Florida, Texas, and Arkansas. And Chasten joins me now. Chasten, how are you? And thanks for being here.
Hey, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I think people who have seen you do interviews, especially seeing you with Mayor Pete, they know you as like the fun Buttigieg. Not that your husband isn't fun, but you're like the fun Buttigieg, right? Secretary Pete, I should say. Now, I still am used to calling him Mayor Pete. But, you know, it's painful, I think, for a lot of people to think of you as not happy. But you've written about not fitting in, not feeling like you fit in with your brothers who were super athletic. In high school, a high school of 1,500, you didn't know of any other students or teachers who were openly gay and didn't come out until after you graduated. You also write about they're presenting a version of yourself. I presented a version of me that I performed for my family, church, and classmates. Talk about that, of having to not be you.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 18 years of my life believing I was the only gay person in the world. I had very few role models. You know, there was Ellen on TV, there was Will and Grace, but I write in the book about how I was terrified of Will and Grace because I thought if I laughed, my family might figure out my secret. We just grew up at a time and a place where it was simply unsafe to be your most authentic self. I had teachers in high school who have since come out and who told me a story about having to drive 3 hours to see any movie with a queer character because they were afraid that someone might see them in the movie theater and they'd lose their job. We just had to present ourselves in a safe way that could be accepted by the social norms. And I want young people to read this book and to know that they are perfectly fine just the way they are. There's nothing wrong with them. And there are millions of people out here backing them up. And it really does get better. And it will continue to get better if we all commit ourselves to that work.
You know, and I mean, you're slightly younger than me, but it's sort of, I guess, shocking for a lot of people to think that in the Will and Grace era, which felt like a much more inclusive era, the post-Ellen era, that you were still feeling like you were unable to come out. But what might it have meant to you in high school if you'd had a gay teacher, if you'd known there was another person in school, if there had been a club, like you talked about going back to your school, and now there was an LGBTQ and allies club? What might that have meant to you?
Yeah, I love my parents deeply. They're staunch advocates of ours. But I tell people often, I'm out on book tour right now, and I'm talking to people about how my life would have changed dramatically had I had a 10-second conversation with them when I was younger, had they sat me down and said, we just want you to know we love you no matter what, no matter who you are. We love you. We believe that you are perfect in God's image, whether you're gay, straight, or anything else. You will always have a roof over your head, and you will always have two parents who love you here. And of course, my parents love me, but we just didn't talk about LGBTQ people at all growing up. And I imagine what my life could have been like had we had that conversation when I was young. Then I could have poured all of my energy and time into things that I really enjoyed, rather than spending so much time consumed with this fear that I would lose everything and lose everyone if they found out this little fact about me.
We also know that the suicide rates, the suicidal ideation rates are much higher for young LGBTQ people. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24. LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Per the Trevor Project, they estimate more than 1.8 million LGBTQ youth seriously consider suicide each year in the U.S., and at least one attempts it every 45 seconds. 45% seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. And yet, in places like Florida, in places like Arkansas, in places like Louisiana, Tennessee, your book is probably going to be banned because they might not have an adult. They know who is gay or who is trans or who is a lesbian, but this book could actually be their adult, right? What do you make of the fact that it's highly likely that your book will be banned in the states where students already feel the most alone?
Yeah, I'm under no illusion of the political landscape. I was a former middle school teacher, so I know my audience. I wrote a completely age-appropriate book. So if the book is banned, I think that's just politics. And to the young people, I say, I am so sorry that we hold you to a higher standard than those people in positions of power. That the people in positions of power at the State House, especially in places like Florida, are behaving like children right now. They're not focused on solving real-world issues and making your life better. The statistics, the data you just showed from the Trevor Project, they ignore those realities because they do not care. And they are more focused on power and clicks and attention and money than improving your lives and keeping you alive. So to you, young people, I say there are millions of people out here backing you up and fighting to make sure that you not only stick around and know that you are loved and cared for, but that you can start focusing on other things and living your life, enjoying what it is like to be a teenager rather than having to hold adults in positions of power accountable.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you so much for being here. How are the kids, real quick? I know that you and Secretary Pete, I have to stop calling him Mayor Pete. How are your adorable children?
They're fantastic. We're coming up on 2. And so while I'm out on the road, I miss them very much. There's nothing like coming home to 2 giggling toddlers at the end of the day. And that's what the important work of this book is like, creating a future where we won't have to keep having these conversations for them, I hope. But they're great. Thanks for asking.
Well, a book baby is also a different kind of child you have to raise. And also, I'm just going to tell you the 2s, they're going to be interesting. I'm just going to leave it at interesting. So enjoy.
Well,
I've had 3 of them. So.
They're flirting with it. Yeah, it's getting crazy.
It's going to get crazy, but it's also wonderful. Chasten Buttigieg, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Here's the book. It is called I Have Something to Tell You for Young Adults. I hope that everyone gets to read it, especially in the states where they need it the most. And look, people should send them to their good friends who have children who are LGBTQ if they can't get it in school. Thank you very much. And don't